Thank you again, Sundance, and welcome, class, to your adventure into quantum physics. Are you ready to jump? Are you ready to jump down the rabbit hole? Welcome. We will be providing you two very important keyholes of information in which you shall broaden your horizon on the concepts of quantum mechanics, physics, and what it can and will do for you in your lifetime. Buckle up, ladies and gentlemen, germs and gents. We're in for quite an apocalyptic ride. First step, water. I know, it sounds simple enough. Have a look at this. Our presentation today first takes us into the wild and wacky world of water. Now this is going to intrigue you as it first intrigued me when I first came upon it. A good friend of mine, Mr. Masaru Emoto. He became terribly interested in the molecular structure of water and what effects it has. You see, it is the most receptive of the four elements. And Mr. Emoto thought perhaps it would respond to non-physical events. So he set up a series of studies which emulated mental stimuli into droplets of water. He photographed them with a dark field microscope, and the effects and the results of the study are absolutely amazing. You see, he took 4 water bottles, and they're all different types of water. The first picture is from the Fujiwara Dam, and that is what the water looks like microscopically. And this picture is the same water after receiving a blessing from a Zen Buddhist monk. Now, in the next series of pictures, Mr. Emoto printed out words, taped them to 2 bottles of distilled water, and let them out overnight. This first photograph is a picture of the pure distilled water, just the essence of itself. These subsequent photographs, as you can see, are each different. This is the chi of love, and we move along here to thank you. And you can see where he taped that to the bottle there, but if you read Japanese, you already knew that. Mr. Emoto speaks of the thought or intent being the driving force in all of this. The science of how that actually affects the molecules is unknown except to the water molecules, of course. Now, if the thought or intention alone can do that to water droplets, what do our own thoughts do to us? Especially since our body is made up of over 70% of water. Something to think about. Where do emotions come from? And why is this happening?
I hate you.
We've gone from emotions being these spiritual, immaterial things to things, they're not even things, to actual molecules with molecular weights and peptides with sequences and structures. Peptides find the receptors and dock onto them and stay attached. Then they come off, and then they can come back on again. And while they're there, they are changing the cell.
I know exactly what you all are thinking. Don't worry. You're thinking right now, what the living grace was that key-looking instrument of an organism, and why was it inserting itself in this cellular structure of sorts? I shall admit it does look a bit strange, but isn't it fantastic that... Oh, Sundance. I apologize. I've just taken full speed ahead on this wagon, of course. please fill the class in on this emotional peptide journey and broaden their minds. Oh, wait, I will wait. True. Well, well done.
A receptor that has a peptide sitting in it sets off a whole cascade of biochemical events, some of which change the nucleus of the cell. Each cell is definitely alive, and each cell has a consciousness, particularly if we define consciousness as the point of view of an observer. There is always the perspective of the cell. The cell knows where it is, the cell knows where it's going, the cell knows what proteins it's making, the cell knows whether it's about to divide or whether it's in a program to stop dividing. In fact, the cell is the smallest unit of consciousness in the body.
I'm hungry.
Now, the woman in our story, she had recently been married, and unfortunately, it did not go as expected. Her job as a photographer at a wedding is giving her flashbacks of her own wedding and the infidelity that had occurred in her marriage. These feelings of betrayal, fear, anger, jealousy, they rush through her brain. And right now, chemically, what's happening is microscopically, these emotional peptides have left her brain and are flooding every single cell in her body. Her brain is wired to connect certain events and emotions like a learned muscle. Like muscle memory, so does the nerve as well. React in the same way it would. And as the youth would call it today, she is currently triggered. Hashtag triggered.
I hate you.
A lot is happening right now. Triggered. Triggered.
The brain is made up of tiny nerve cells called neurons. These neurons have tiny branches that reach out and connect to other neurons to form a neural net. Each place where they connect is integrated into a thought or a memory. Now, the brain builds up all its concepts by the law of associative memory. For example, ideas, thoughts, and feelings are all constructed and interconnected in this neural net, and all have a possible relationship with one another. The concept and the feeling of love, for instance, is stored in this vast neural net. But we build the concept of love from many other different ideas. Some people have love connected to disappointment. When they think about love, they experience the memory of pain, sorrow, anger, and even rage. Rage may be linked to hurt, which may be linked to a specific person, which then is connected back to love. We know physiologically that nerve cells that fire together wire together. If you practice something over and over again, those nerve cells have a long-term relationship. If you get angry on a daily basis, if you get frustrated on a daily basis, if you suffer on a daily basis, you're rewiring and reintegrating that neural net on a daily basis, and that neural net now has a long-term relationship with all those other nerve cells called an identity. Every time we interrupt the thought process that produces a chemical response in the body, every time we interrupt it, those nerve cells that are connected to each other start breaking the long-term relationship. We're in completely new territory in our brain. And because we're in completely new territory, we're rewiring the brain, literally reconnecting to a new concept.